In a stunning turn of events, Labour's recent triumph in Grimsby, symbolic of a red wall comeback, is already on shaky ground. Just 4 months after the election, Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveiled her ambitious budget, which promises to revolutionise public spending, but has left voters in Grimsby questioning its real impact. Today, we're taking you back to Grimsby, where 3 local voters who confronted Sir Keir Starmer at the Leaders' event shared their views on Labour's performance so far. These voices, from lifelong Labour supporters to former Conservatives, reveal a story of doubt, betrayal and frustration. Will Labour's vision for the future resonate with these pivotal voters, or are they already slipping away? Now let's get to the heart of their responses, because if Grimsby's sentiment echoes throughout the Red Wall, Labour could be on the brink of a serious reckoning.
Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer, who would you vote for?
Not either of them.
At the moment, neither.
I'd still go with Rishi, if I'm being honest.
I don't know.
None of them.
Undecided.
Probably neither. Neither.
There's a lot of neither tonight.
I'm undecided. I was undecided before I came, and I'm really kind of undecided now.
It's Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak?
Sunak.
Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer?
Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer.
Well, I thought Keir Starmer did well tonight.
I think Keir Starmer.
The fragile foundation of Labour's comeback, Grimsby, once a hub of Labour support, made headlines in 2019 when it flipped Conservative, only to swing back to Labour in 2024. This historic switch was hailed as part of a Labour landslide, but the underlying numbers paint a different picture. Labour's narrow conditional victory sits atop the weakest vote share in history. For Starmer, Grimsby was a crucial win, but even he knows that the support they reclaimed is anything but stable. Rachel Reeves's first budget has been bold, some would say daring, bringing £25 billion in funding for the NHS, a raft of tax increases and an aggressive public investment agenda. But locals in Grimsby see the budget as a gamble that risks placing the burden on them. As we listen to Sharon, Amy and Cayman, voters whose questions in the Leaders' debate revealed early cracks in Labour's support, it becomes clear that Labour's message isn't landing quite as expected. Sharon, a loyal Labour supporter, feels let down. Sharon, a lifelong Labour voter and care worker, was one of Labour's most reliable supporters, until now. During the Leaders' debate, Sharon directly asked Starmer about his promise not to raise taxes on working people. Today, as she watches herself ask that question, she can only shake her head in disappointment. "I was right to be worried," Sharon says. "Instead of keeping taxes low, they're just piling on costs that we'll end up paying somehow. Employers will pass these new national insurance hikes onto us, either in our paychecks or at the checkout. I voted for Labour because I believed they'd protect people like me, but all I see is chaos." For Sharon, Labour's pledge to shield working people has fallen apart, replaced by what she calls a game of chance. She fears Labour's new tax policies are a gamble, and if the economic growth Reeves is banking on doesn't materialise, everyday people in Grimsby will suffer the consequences. Sharon's loyalty to Labour has never wavered, until now. Amy, once the local chair of her Conservative Party chapter, grew so disillusioned by scandals like Partygate that she couldn't bring herself to back Sunak, instead voting Liberal Democrat in the last election. For Amy, trust was and still is her main concern, and she remains deeply sceptical of both major parties. "Trust is still a huge issue for me," Amy explains. "When Labour talks about bringing growth, they're doing it by putting the burden on businesses that are already struggling. Small businesses here in Grimsby are barely making it as is. This budget just adds to their load." Amy recalls her frustration during the Leaders' event when she asked Sunak why his government's actions left her feeling ashamed of the party she once supported. Today, she's even more frustrated that Labour seems to be making similar mistakes by placing massive tax demands on businesses. For her, Labour's bold promises don't add up to a clear, trustworthy vision, and she questions whether they have the depth to understand what her community really needs. Cayman. Starmer's just another political robot. Cayman, who once supported Starmer for his straightforward demeanour, has become one of his most vocal critics. During the Leaders' debate, he raised a question that has come to define Starmer's leadership. Does he have the human touch needed to be Prime Minister? For Cayman, the Labour leader now seems cold, calculating, and disconnected from the concerns of ordinary people. Back then, he felt like someone I could trust, Cayman reflects. Now, he's just a political robot. Cayman's frustrations with the Labour government's budget hit especially hard when he considers policies like the winter fuel allowance cuts for pensioners. It feels like a punishment, not a plan, he says. How can a leader with a heart cut support for those who need it most? For Cayman, Reeves's budget decisions represent more than just economic policy. They reflect a Labour Party that he sees as out of touch with the people they claim to represent. He believes that Labour has failed to clearly explain their vision to voters like him, leaving him frustrated and distrustful of their motives. Local MP Melanie On, the Labour budget's risks and rewards. Melanie On, the Labour MP who reclaimed Grimsby, admits that even she was surprised by the aggressive scale of Labour's budget. As someone who understands the delicate balance of support in her constituency, she recognises both the potential benefits and risks of this ambitious plan. I was surprised by the boldness of it, On acknowledges. But this is what we need, a commitment to invest in public services and restore the NHS. It's a big bet, but it's one we have to make. On knows that her victory was far from absolute. Reform ran strong in Grimsby, capturing a significant number of voters who might have otherwise leaned Conservative or even Labour. A lot of people here were looking for a change, not necessarily Labour, she explains. For some, reform was an appealing alternative, even if they didn't know much about their policies. On believes the budget could help rebuild Grimsby's trust in Labour, but she's aware of the political risks. If Labour fails to deliver, voters may turn to populist alternatives like the Reform Party, whose influence has already grown dramatically in red wall seats like Grimsby. The Reform Party's rising appeal, a threat to Labour's fragile coalition. The Reform Party, led by Nigel Farage, has become a major force in UK politics, capturing 14% of the national vote and placing second in dozens of Labour seats. In Grimsby, Reform's message of nationalism and populism has resonated with many former Conservatives and disillusioned Labour voters. With far-right movements gaining traction across Europe, Labour faces mounting pressure to prove that their budget can deliver meaningful change for communities like Grimsby before Reform's appeal grows even stronger. Just 4 months into his tenure, Keir Starmer's leadership faces a stark test in Grimsby. The voices of Sharon, Amy and Cayman reveal that Labour's budget has left voters uncertain, frustrated and wary of the government's intentions. With populist forces gaining ground, Labour's future in Grimsby and across the Red Wall will depend on their ability to turn bold promises into real progress. Want to know if Labour's budget gamble will pay off or backfire? Stay tuned, hit subscribe and keep watching as we follow every twist in this high-stakes political drama. From Grimsby's voice to Parliament's halls, we'll bring you the latest updates on Labour's Red Wall revival and the future of UK politics.